Hello everyone, this is me SC and welcome to this video. In this video we'll be learning about the brachial plexus. So what is the brachial plexus? Let's break down the word into two parts. So the first part, brachial. Brachial means anything concerning with the arms or the hands, and plexus means a network of nerves. So what does brachial plexus on a whole mean? It basically means a network of nerves which innervate or supply the arm, the forearm and the hand. So where does this come from? Let's get into a little bit of detail. So this is the neck region and these are the vertebra, and inside the vertebra runs the spinal cord. So this is a transverse section of the spinal cord. Now spinal cords have roots emerging from it, 4 roots or rami emerging from it. So this is the dorsal side, this is the ventral side. Hence this will be called the dorsal root, this will be called the ventral root. So what are we concerned with in this video? We are concerned with the ventral rami of spinal nerves C5 to T1. So what is that exactly? So the spinal cord runs in this vertebral column. It's divided into various segments like C1, C2, C3. So we are only concerned with C5 to T1 and their ventral rami, which is the root exiting from the ventral side, which is this part. So as for everything in anatomy, there is a mnemonic. There's a mnemonic for remembering the various parts of the brachial plexus. The brachial plexus is divided into 5 basic parts. So what is the mnemonic? The mnemonic goes as Randy Travis drinks cold beer. So what do the letters stand for? R stands for root, T stands for trunks, D for divisions, C for cords, and B for branches, the terminal branches. So what does all this mean? So let's look at a picture here. This is a real cadaveric image. And over here we can see the spinal cord. This is the spinal cord. So the spinal cord is divided into imaginary segments, C4, C5, C6. We can see this in the picture. So from these segments, from the ventral rami, as I discussed in this picture, the ventral rami exits certain nerves, the C5 roots. So those are called the roots. Then certain roots, they mix, a network is formed, then the trunks come. Then after the trunks comes the cords, after the trunks comes the divisions, then comes the cords, and then comes the branches. So once we start drawing the brachial plexus, all of this will become much more clearer. Okay, so before we move on to actually drawing the brachial plexus, let me add a side note. So the first 2 parts of the brachial plexus, the root and the trunks, they are supraclavicular. So what does that mean? So basically, if this is the neck, this is the clavicle, arm, shoulder, bad diagram. The roots and the trunks lie above the clavicle. They actually lie in the neck region, which you learn in head and neck. They lie inside the deep cervical fascia. Anyway, that's not for now. The divisions are retroclavicular. That means they lie right behind the clavicle, and the cords and the branches are infraclavicular, which obviously means that they lie under the clavicle, below the level of the clavicle, not under. Anyway, so now let's actually draw out the brachial plexus. Okay, so now there's this very important concept about the vertebra and the spinal roots. So they are different. So in gray, the things that I've drawn here, these are the vertebrae. So this is C5 vertebra, the cervical vertebra, C6, C7, T1, and this will be T2, but we're not concerned with that. Now in yellow, what I'm about to draw are the roots emerging from the spinal cord segments. So the spinal cord segment root emerging from here is C5. So it lies above the C5 vertebra. C6 also lies above the vertebra, and as you can guess, C7 also lies. Now there is a C8. C8 vertebral root, spinal nerve, but there is no C8 vertebra, the bone. Hence, C8, the vertebral root, lies below C7 and above T1, and T1 spinal nerve lies below T1 vertebra. So from now on, when we go to T2, T3, the spinal roots lie below the vertebral level, but in the cervical vertebral level, all the spinal roots lie above the vertebral level. I hope it wasn't too confusing. So in yellow I have drawn the roots. Let me write R. In yellow I have drawn the roots. Now some of these roots will converge to form the trunks, because Randy Travis, trunks. So C5 and C6 converge to form the upper trunk. C7 goes solo to form the middle trunk. C8 and T1 converge to form the lower trunk. That was simple enough. Now each trunk gives out a ventral and a dorsal division, or we can say anterior and posterior division. I'll be saying ventral and dorsal. So each trunk gives out a ventral and dorsal division. In light blue I'm drawing the ventral divisions, and in white I'm drawing the dorsal divisions. So the ventral divisions of the upper and the middle trunk, they converge and form something which I'm coming to, and all the dorsal divisions, they converge and form a separate structure, and this solo ventral division of the lower trunk goes alone. So what do they form? The ventral divisions of the upper and the middle trunk, they converge to form the lateral cord, because obviously after divisions comes the cords. Drinks cold beer, the cold. So lateral cord. The white branches that I drew, they were all the posterior, or let me write dorsal, not posterior, dorsal divisions of all the three trunks to form the posterior cord. Ventral, and the ventral lone division coming from the lower trunk forms the medial cord. Now what is the basis of this naming, lateral, posterior and medial? This is with respect to the axillary artery. So over here this is a rough diagram of the axillary artery. The red one is the axillary artery. So these were the roots: C5, C6, C7, C8, T1. So quick revision: C5, C6 merges, forms the upper trunk. C7 goes alone, forms the middle trunk. C8 and T1 merge to form the lower trunk. Now after all the ventral and dorsal merging, we find three cords. So the cord which is lateral to the axillary artery forms the lateral cord. The one which goes behind the axillary artery, this is running behind the axillary artery, will obviously be the posterior cord, and the one which runs medial to the axillary artery is the medial cord. Okay, so let's go back to this diagram. Okay, so this diagram has gotten a bit congested. Let's go to a more cleaner version of this diagram. So now all we have left is to discuss the branches, the terminal branches. So there are actually 5 very important terminal branches of the brachial plexus. So let's just enumerate them. So the first nerve is musculocutaneous nerve. These terminal branches actually enter the arm. Then we have the radial nerve, the axillary nerve, the ulnar nerve, and the median nerve. So these are the most important 5 terminal branches which we will draw soon. There are obviously other branches which we will also discuss. So okay, so in green we can see the divisions. So let me just draw the cords. Now from the lateral cord emerges the musculocutaneous nerve. Musculocutaneous nerve. Okay, so first let's discuss all the 5 terminal branches, and then let's go into each sub branches of each cord. So this is the musculocutaneous nerve. From the posterior cord emerges 2 of the terminal branches, one small branch, the axillary nerve, and one big branch, which is the radial nerve. We'll change the color a bit. Yes. So from the lateral and the medial cord, 2 roots emerge. It's called the lateral root and medial root of median nerve because they join to ultimately form the median nerve. And the last terminal nerve coming from the medial root only is the ulnar nerve. So we got our 5 terminal nerves: the musculocutaneous, the axillary, the radial, the median nerve, and the ulnar nerve. Now we are going to discuss each cord in more detail, the sub branches of each cord, and for that we have mnemonics. Okay, so let's start with the lateral cord. So what is the mnemonic? The mnemonic for the lateral cord goes as L M L. So M, we can all guess, is the musculocutaneous nerve, which is one of the 5 important terminal branches. L is lateral pectoral nerve. So which one is the lateral pectoral nerve? This tiny one emerging from the lateral cord is the lateral pectoral nerve. And what is the other L? The other L is the lateral root of median nerve. As I said previously, the median nerve has 2 roots, the lateral root and the medial root, which converge to form the median nerve proper. So this nerve is the lateral root of the median nerve. So we are done with the lateral cord. Now let's come to the posterior cord. So the posterior cord mnemonic goes as ulnar. Now what is important over here is the ulnar nerve is not a part of the posterior cord, but the mnemonic for the posterior cord is ulnar. So what is it? U stands for upper subscapular nerve, L stands for lower subscapular nerve, N stands for nerve to latissimus dorsi. Latissimus dorsi is a muscle of the back, so nerve to latissimus dorsi. A is axillary, we already know about axillary, one of the terminal branches, and R is radial. So let's point it out in the schematic diagram. So you would think that it should go in order, right? U, L, N, A, R, but that's not how it goes. It actually goes as U, N, L. So it's actually unlar, but that makes no sense. So we call it ulnar. So the first branch is upper subscapular, then we have nerve to latissimus dorsi, then we have lower subscapular, then already drawn in the diagram axillary and radial nerve. So yes, done with posterior cord. All we have left is the medial cord. Medial cord also has a mnemonic. It is M4U. So what does that mean? There are 4 M's. So M1 and U. U we all know is going to be ulnar. First M stands for medial pectoral nerve. If you remember, the lateral pectoral nerve was emerging from the lateral cord and medial pectoral nerve emerges from the medial cord. So it's poetic justice. Second M is the medial cutaneous nerve of arm. Third M is the medial cutaneous nerve of forearm. So if this is the arm and elbow, very bad diagram, this is the arm, this is the forearm, this is the hand. So cutaneous means cutaneous sensation on the skin. So this nerve is for the arm, cutaneous sensation of the arm. This nerve is for cutaneous sensation of the forearm. The fourth M stands for medial root of median nerve. As already discussed, median nerve has two roots, lateral root, medial root. So this is the medial root of median nerve. So let's draw this out in a schematic diagram. First one is medial pectoral nerve. Then we have medial cutaneous nerve of forearm. Medial cutaneous nerve of arm comes first. Then we have medial cutaneous nerve of forearm. And then of course this is the medial root of median nerve. And lastly, U stands for ulnar. We are almost done with the brachial plexus. So before that, we need to discuss some other branches which are emerging from either the roots or the trunks. So here we can already see some branches. So what are they? We should start naming them. Okay, so first of all, this nerve coming from C5, then C6 is joining a bit, C7, and then it goes down. So it's basically formed from C5, C6, C7. What is it? It is the long thoracic nerve. Long thoracic nerve. It is also called the nerve to serratus anterior because it supplies the serratus anterior. It's a very clinically important nerve which we'll come to at the end of the video. Okay, so this nerve right here, which is emerging from the C5 root, is called dorsal scapular nerve. Dorsal scapular nerve obviously supplies the muscles on the dorsal side of the scapula. So what are they? They are rhomboid major, rhomboid minor, and levator scapulae. Now we come to the upper trunk. Upper trunk has two branches. The first branch is the suprascapular nerve. So the suprascapular nerve supplies to two muscles, the supraspinatus and the infraspinatus. Then this branch right here is the nerve to subclavius. So as its name suggests, it supplies the subclavian muscle. Okay, so we are finally done with all the branches of the brachial plexus, the sub branches, everything, the mnemonics, and now we are only left with the clinics. Okay, so I guess this video is getting a bit too long, so the clinics of the brachial plexus will be discussed in the next video. Clinics of the brachial plexus are very important, so please don't miss out on that video. So this is where I bid thee farewell. Stay tuned for upcoming content.